Hello and welcome to What Culture Horror with myself, Andrew Pollard. Be sure to like, subscribe, turn those notification bells on, and most importantly, as ever, just make sure you're having the best possible day, whether you're doing something, whether you're doing nothing. I hope it goes extremely cool for you. And in terms of extremely cool, there's some very positive news if you're a fan of the Friday the 13th franchise. Could we finally be getting a new Friday the 13th movie? Seemingly so. You're telling me there's a chance. Now, while horror hounds have been treated to delightful revisits of franchises such as Halloween, Scream, and Hellraiser in recent years, one iconic, truly iconic property that's been left out in the cold for over a decade by this point is Friday the 13th. Yes, of course, the reason that Jason Voorhees and his famed Camp Crystal Lake locale have been absent from the silver screen for a staggering 14 years now is due to a legal battle between the original film's director Sean S. Cunningham and that picture's writer Victor Miller. Now, thankfully, those issues seem to slowly but surely be resolving themselves. The first major indicator of that being the recently announced Crystal Lake TV series that's in development for Peacock. Now, that will serve as a prequel to the initial 1980 Friday the 13th. So we're going to go back. We're going to have Pamela Voorhees seemingly as the one of the lead characters of that, you'd have to imagine. And with that one, Victor Miller's joined forces with Hannibal's Brian Fuller. Now, Hannibal, again, if you're here, you're here to listen about horror. You're here to read up about horror on obviously, of course, on the main What Culture website, whatculture.com. But if you're a horror fan, Hannibal is essential viewing. So to know that Brian Fuller, the mind behind that series, is involved with Crystal Lake, the Friday the 13th prequel series, that's extremely good news. Now, as per Bloody Disgusting, though, there's some developments that we could be, hopefully, we'll be getting a new Friday the 13th movie. Now, this similar positive news for franchise fans. It's basically, yeah, Jason Voorhees, hopefully, is gearing up for a return to cinema screens. Not just that, but the aforementioned Sean S. Cunningham is also involved in what's currently being described as a reboot. Now, as mentioned, this story came from Bloody Disgusting, which is always a great outlet for horror fans. Get yourself over there, give those guys some love, they do a phenomenal job. But yeah, Cunningham's teaming up with writer Jeff Locker and director Jeremy Weiss for 3 upcoming projects, one of which is a new Friday the 13th movie. Now, the first of these projects is a horror feature titled The Night Driver, and it was while working on that film that Cunningham, Locker and Weiss began discussing ideas for Friday the 13th. In fact, not just that, but I said there was 3 projects. The other one is also a reboot of House, as in the 1985 kind of family-friendly-ish horror. It's with Bill Catt. I always like Bill Catt, William Catt, who most people probably know from Carrie, Brian De Palma's Carrie. Now, to me, House is an interesting franchise. The first film's great. The second film, not so great. The third film, which originally wasn't meant to be a house film, very not so great. And the fourth film's okay. But more importantly, Friday the 13th, because House has its fans, but I mean, that property just, there's nowhere near the fandom for that, as there is, of course, for Friday the 13th. Now, Jeff Locker explained to Bloody Disgusting that he was hired by Sean S. Cunningham to do a rewrite on The Night Driver, the other film that we were just talking about, and Jeremy Weiss was the director of that, is the director of that. So, Locker and Weiss, as Jeff Locker put it, they pitched their dream reboot of Friday the 13th to Sean S. Cunningham, and Cunningham was keen to begin developing the film with them. So, positive news, great news. But also, as mentioned, there is this kind of the legal issues, this cloud hovering over the Friday the 13th property. But Jeff Locker did also note that they had a plan B for a Friday the 13th sequel to the original movie if needed. As he put it, this plan B would avoid any legal entanglements. So, I mean, if the first film that they're imagining can't happen, there is a second film, or second idea already brewing, I guess you would call it. Now, any new Friday the 13th movie is clearly in the early stages right now, so zero plot details known at this point. But it's hugely, hugely positive to hear that something is in the works for this legendary horror series to slice its way back to theatres. Now, to go a little deeper on the legal issues for anybody not aware of this, it's the issues are between Victor Miller and Sean S. Cunningham. It's the kind of the major elephant in the room right now. The situation itself dates back to the 2010s. It kind of, Victor Miller decided, well, he basically took Sean S. Cunningham to court over revenue rights generated by the wider Friday the 13th franchise over the years. As the writer of the first film, Victor Miller basically said that, He thought he had a claim to some of the money earned by Sean S. Cunningham from the property over the years. And from Sean's side, his argument was that Victor Miller was a, I think the term used was work for hire employee. But it was Victor Miller who emerged victorious in this legal case. Kind of. I mean, he did, but there is a caveat, and I will get to that now. So Miller was awarded the copyright to everything featured in that first Friday the 13th. So, Camp Crystal Lake, Pamela Voorhees, Alice, I guess, the lone survivor at the end, who then gets killed in the opening scene of Friday the 13th Part 2. Spoilers. And also, he was awarded the rights to Jason Voorhees. Now, the catch here, well, that's because Victor Miller was not given the rights to anything that came after the first Friday the 13th, which most importantly included the adult form of Jason Voorhees, because in the 1980 film, of course, Jason's just featured as a young boy he drowned as a youngster, and then kind of, there's the jump ending where he comes back up and grabs Alice and pulls her into Camp Crystal Lake. Into Crystal Lake, not Camp Crystal Lake. It's just the lake, Crystal Lake. So, anyway, so Victor Miller got that version of Jason Voorhees, not the adult version of Jason Voorhees. So that's kind of a catch there. But that itself seemed to kind of sort itself out towards the end of last year, because when it was announced that Crystal Lake, the TV series, was in development, Brian Fuller, as he put it at the time, said that the series had access to everything from the Friday the 13th franchise. The story goes that Horror Inc., who's also involved in the TV series, they managed to kind of assemble the rights to the other Friday the 13th elements that Victor Miller did not own. So that's a positive news for that series anyway, because then you can go off and do whatever you want seemingly with any characters from the entire franchise, which so much potential there. But it's worth stating again, reiterating that this stage initially is going to be a Friday the 13th prequel series. Now, as alluded to before, the last outing for the Friday the 13th franchise in terms of cinemas, that came back in 2009. That was Marcus Nispel's Reboot, which was decent, to be fair. I enjoy it. There's a lot to enjoy about that. I know some people, as ever with a reboot, with a remake, that there's always going to be some people that don't like it, and there's that fine line of, do you do something completely fresh, but then you risk alienating people that are fans of what they know about the franchise, or do you revisit what people know and then get accused of just basically copying ideas from the past? So with the Friday the 13th reboot, the 2009 one, Derek Mears, of course, genre fave Derek Mears, what a lovely fella, absolute a beautiful human being, what a man. And the ultimate Friday the 13th nerd. Now, with that reboot, it kind of merged together elements of the first maybe 3 Friday the 13th films while telling its own unique story. So I liked it. I dig it. I understand if people don't, but for me, I'm a fan of that one. Now, the plan was originally to do sequels to that film, though that's sadly not happened. And there was also talk, I mean, we're talking 2009, so there's been a bunch of attempts to get a new Friday the 13th movie into cinemas over the years. I mean, notably, LeBron James even was looking to produce a Friday the 13th film at one point, but any attempts to get a new movie off the ground have come to nothing over subsequent years. I mean, prior to that, Jason clashed with his fellow horror icon, Freddy Krueger, in Ronnie Yu's 2003 Freddy vs. Jason. Again, another fun popcorn slasher to me anyway. Again, though, I understand why some people have issues with that movie, particularly the lack of Kane Hodder. That was to see him replaced as Jason by Ken Kirzinger. Not great, not ideal, because part of the appeal of Freddy vs. Jason was Kane Hodder versus Robert Englund, and we got only one half of that equation, unfortunately. But before that, I mean, the main Friday the 13th franchise saw Jason head to space in 2002 for Jason X. He went to hell in 1993 for the final Friday, and to New York City, 1989, Jason Takes Manhattan, which is such a guilty pleasure of mine. I cannot stress enough how much I enjoy Jason Takes Manhattan. I know it's trash. I know so much of it makes no sense. I know he doesn't exactly take Manhattan. He kind of just turns up in New York City, in Times Square for like 15 minutes. But hey, and the ending doesn't make any sense. And a boat going from Crystal Lake to New York, so much of it doesn't make sense. But I love that film nonetheless. Elsewhere, of course, in recent years, there was Gun Media and Ilphonic's brilliant, absolutely brilliant Friday the 13th, The Game, which that was forced to stop any new content back in 2018. And that was part, again, because of the legal issues that were surrounding the property. So, yeah, hopefully now, hopefully that's given you a broader idea of the problems that have been going on, the legal status of Friday the 13th, the IP, the property. So hopefully that gives you an idea on that. But hopefully we're going to be getting Jason Voorhees back on the silver screen sooner rather than later. So that's enough to put a smile on my face for the day. I mean, are you excited about this latest Friday the 13th development? Are you keen to see Jason back in action? Maybe, I don't know, maybe you've got interest in seeing a Jason-less Friday the 13th movie? I mean, that could be that plan B that was being talked about. Or, I don't know, maybe you've just got no interest whatsoever in revisiting, I guess, clinging on to one of the greats of the past. Horror so often gets accused of just going back and churning out the same ideas and same ideas. So maybe you'd rather not see any new Friday the 13th movies, and you'd rather see, I don't know, a focus on fresh ideas. Who knows? Or maybe you can do both. You can have a Friday the 13th movie with fresh ideas. Then we all win. Either way, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Be sure, of course, to like, subscribe, turn those notification bells on, and come and give us a follow on Twitter at WCultureHorror. Follow the main channel if you want as well, at WhatCulture, and you can even give me a follow if you really want, at CultureLeftPeg on the Twitter. But most importantly, as ever, have a great rest of your day. Whether you're doing something, whether you're doing nothing, I hope you have the best possible day. And if it's not going so well, I hope it turns around for you quickly. I've been Andrew from What Culture Horror, and I will see you down the road.